Hey guys, welcome to another TFL live show. We were so happy that you could join us. Today I've got my man Tommy with me.
Absolutely, and we're talking about the new Acura Integra, which is one of kind of the most controversial cars of 2022. And we're going to talk about the good, the bad, and maybe what we like and dislike about it.
Yeah, exactly. But before we get to that, let's talk about some of the things that are happening. First and foremost, we're wearing shorts, and that's because it's like 8,000 degrees here in Colorado. We're baking on the west coast of the United States, and so that's why we're wearing shorts. But more importantly, Tommy, did you know that we're selling a really cool car today on TFL Bids?
Exactly. So there's a video over actually on the Classics channel, but it's a Mercedes W123, which is one of my all-time favorite cars. I got a cool chance to kind of look around and drive it around a little bit. It's a little rough around the edges, but the reserve is pretty low, I think, for the car, and it seems to be a really very, very cool vehicle. So check it out over at tflbids.com, where you can have the chance to bid on an unusual 1984 300D. It's a very rare color.
Yeah, that thing will outlast both of us, right?
For sure.
And then we're also going to be selling our very own FJ after the auction finishes on the Mercedes, and we'll be selling our classic 1976 FJ Cruiser. Unfortunately, we were going to fix it, but we just don't have the bandwidth. So if you want a classic American FJ from 1976 that needs a lot of love, it's going to be up for sale over at tflbids.com. So let's talk about this, Tommy, and why it's so controversial. And the reason is very simple. It's the same reason, basically, that the Supra is controversial because, well, not the same reason, but it's kind of sort of. Basically, it's a rebranded Honda Civic Si.
And if you have any questions or any comments, I got the live chat going right here on my phone, so we'll be sure to answer those. But yeah, now I think the Supra is a little bit of a different boat, though, right?
Yeah, it's a different manufacturer.
Yeah, Toyota went with BMW to kind of build the Supra, and it was co-developed with BMW. Of course, Acura based the new Integra on the Civic Si, and Honda is the parent company to Acura, so it's still within the same family. But I'm not so sure that's a bad thing, because if you look historically, right, the Integra has always been based on the Civic. The first Integra to ever launch was just like this, a four-door hatchback. And this is a great driving car. It looks great. It's got a pretty cool little engine. It's got a nice interior. I think it's a good little package.
Yeah, so your mom owned the very first Integra back in the day. And back then, of course, Acura was just starting out as a brand, right? There was the NSX, there was the Integra, and there was a Legend. There were three cars. And what made the Integra so interesting was that it was very affordable. I think she bought it for something like $16,000. And it was basically an upscale Honda Civic, like you said. Now, this to me is a different animal. It doesn't feel like an upscale Civic. It feels, and it seems to be, a much more luxurious, in some ways much more expensive car that actually gets a little bit less fun to drive this in some ways.
Well, this competes with vehicles like the 2 Series Grand Coupe, maybe the Mercedes-Benz CLA, and it's priced more affordably than both of those. So it starts at just $30,000. This one, with just about every bell and whistle, about $37,000. Now, of course, it's not just based on any Civic. It's based on the Civic Si. So underneath the hood, we're going to find a 1.5-liter turbocharged four-cylinder with about 200 horsepower powering the front wheels. And this is the top trim A-spec model, which means it comes equipped with an optional 6-speed manual transmission. But if you want a Civic Si in an automatic, you can also get the Acura in an automatic transmission. And that's one of the best things about it, right? Because the Civic Si is only available as a stick, whereas the Integra, you can both get 3 pedals and 2 pedals.
Yeah, but that's where it gets kind of bad for me, because if you do get the 2-pedal version, and otherwise the automatic, it's not an automatic, it's a CVT, Tommy. And if you're an enthusiast, I'm not going to bore people to death. They all know why we hate CVTs. They just take the joy out of driving. What I do love about this is that you can see the top of the engine. It's not covered up in plastic, and you get a really good sense of, the mechanics behind this car. So I've got the Monroney right here. Let me read some of the facts off. First and foremost, it comes with a limited slip diff, which is pretty badass. And this one has the a-spec package, which gives you 18-inch alloy wheels. You can show those rolling on 235/40 R18 all-season tires, LED fog lights, rear deck spoiler, and sports pedals, Tommy. We'll show those in a second.
Now, I think part of the reason that this car gets a little bit of hate from the Integra community is because it's a four-door only, right? So the Integra, which I think people really remember, is like the DC2 of like the 1990s with those round headlights and the two-door fastback look. And then, of course, the RSX was what they kind of relabeled the Integra in the States, but it was sold as the Integra in other places. Also a two-door, where this has gone to the four-door design with kind of the sloping rear end. But I think it's a pretty attractive-looking car. And I went on the launch of this. It shares almost nothing on the exterior with the Civic. So it's basically all new from a body panel standpoint. And it's got some cool stuff like the Integra is still ingrained there in the rear bumper and the front bumper, which looks very, very good. I think it's quite an attractive design.
Do you like the fact that it's got this little spoiler on the back?
Yeah, it looks good. Yeah, and it's got a big trunk too. It's not a conventional trunk. It's a full lift back. It's got the ELS premium sound system. We can see the subwoofer back there.
Looks like an 80-20 split.
Yep, you can fold down the seats. Exactly right. Got a little bit of additional storage underneath the rear floor there. So it's a much more practical car.
Did you see the hidden little feature here? You know what that is, right? That's a tire inflation kit.
Yeah.
So no spare tire.
But it's a much more practical car than like the two-door Integras that a lot of people remember, which is great if you have a family or if you've got kids, right?
I do like the dual exhausts out the back. I think those are pretty cool. Now, I just got off of a Honda program, and I got to drive the Civic Si, and I got to drive this since we've had it now at the office for almost a week. And I got to tell you, I do like the driving experience of this more because I do like the fact that it's a little bit more luxurious. It's a little bit more premium looking. So why don't we pop on the inside, or why don't you pop on the inside and show them the interior of it?
Yeah, I think this is where they did a very good job. Now, certainly there are some design cues which are reminiscent of the Civic. So, like, take a look at these vents right here. The way they have these little mesh grates with the little sliders is pretty similar to the Civic Si. But the quality materials in here is really nice. I especially love the seats in this A-spec, this red leather on the edges, and then we've got like this suede material in the middle. Feels very nice, looks very good. We've got the red center armrest, dual cup holders here, and then of course the Integra, one of the few cars available in 2022 with a 6-speed manual. Now they're doing something a little bit different, where if you want the 6-speed, you can only get it on the top spec Integra. So for example, if you want one for like 30, 31 grand, it's going to be CVT only. You gotta pay a lot for the manual, but it's one of the best manuals in the industry. The feeling of it's excellent. It's got great throws. It's got a nice little click as you engage each gear. It's a fantastic stick.
So this one has a tech package, Tommy, which includes the 16-speaker premium audio system, sports seats with micro suede inserts, Acura Link communications, heads-up display, which is pretty cool.
Yep.
Front and rear parking sensor, low-speed brake control. What is the low-speed braking control?
That's I think emergency braking at
I gotcha.
Standard speeds. Yeah.
And rain sensing wipers.
Now check this out too, Cole. If you want to kind of bring the camera in here, full digital instrument cluster. Looks really, really good, and we have different drive modes, and that's going to kind of change the look of the instrument cluster as well, change some of the colors around. One of my favorite parts, you already mentioned the heads-up display, which is a great feature too, Dad. And I think that this is a very decent infotainment system. It's very well integrated. It's got your volume control, right, which is nice. You've got an actual knob. Pretty easy to use. I could use a little bit more color. They kind of went a little bit black and white and monotone on the color, so maybe that would have been a nice feature. But apart from that, the interior is quite good. Is this on par with BMW and Mercedes?
It's on par with the Asian version of BMW and Mercedes. So, the Germans are a little bit more logical and a little bit less shall we say, Tokyo by night design language. The Germans are a little bit more straightforward. Now back here, this is one of the features, of course, it's a bigger vehicle, but as you can tell, my head, if I try to put it back, does not fit. There's a little scalloped area here that's kind of cut out from my head, but I would not be comfortable riding in the back of this car, being 6'2". Unfortunately, I do have legroom. This seat is as far back as it can go, so the legroom is good, but headroom is, a little compromised. I feel a little claustrophobic back here. I do like these blood red seats. I'm a sucker for red interiors. They, to me, say that the car is very sporty, but there are some rather cost-cutting plastics. But I guess for $37,385, you're not going to get all leather and lace.
Now, it's worth noting, too, that you can get more horsepower in the Audi, the BMW, the Mercedes competitors. You can also get all-wheel drive. This vehicle is front-wheel drive only. However, I think it's quite an attractive design. I think it drives nicely. Now, the 1.5 turbo with 200 horsepower is not going to blow your head off in terms of acceleration, but it does scoot the car down the road pretty nicely. I think it makes a pretty good little sound as well, and the chassis dynamics are really what make this special. So it's not quite as firm, not quite as boy racer as an SI, a little bit more mature, It's a pretty good highway cruiser, but when you get it into the mountains, stick it into the sport mode, it still feels pretty dynamic. It likes to rotate a little bit, not too much understeer, and the automatic rev matching on the downshifts makes it super easy to drive smoothly.
If it were your money, would you get the SI or would you get the Integra?
I would probably get the Integra, actually. I really just love the interior of this vehicle, and that would be my deciding factor. Now, my big question to you is, right, they just revealed the new Civic Type R with 315 horsepower. So is there going to be an Integra Type S or like GSR, which is going to be a high horsepower version of this car?
Yeah, so we had a long conversation about this on our podcast on over at TFL Talk. If you want to check that out, just go to alltfl.com. My biggest gripe nowadays is that when I was your age, Tommy, they used to build sporty cars that were quick and powerful and yet still didn't compromise the driving experience. Now, today, a lot of the manufacturers, and this is not the case with this car, are building just pure-on race cars for the road. So in my perfect world, you take the 309 horsepower, right? That's what it came out to in the Honda Civic Type R.
I think it's 315 in the
The 315?
Yeah.
It was 9 more than the previous one. So yeah, that makes sense. It was 305 to 314. I would take that engine and I would stuff it in here, and that would be my ultimate car.
Well, I think it might happen. I really do.
You think so?
Yeah. I mean, it's not a stretch to think that if it's based on the same platform, why couldn't they put that
But
bigger?
this is already the A-spec. What are they going to have, like a double A-spec?
No, Type S.
Oh, I see.
So like TLX, right? You can get an A-spec,
Yeah.
but then the one above it's going to be the Type S. So I think there might be a Type S Integra coming down the road, or that's probably, if I see where the winds are blowing, that would make a lot of sense.
So you think that they will take the Type R engine and put it in an Integra?
Everyone thinks that we planned our outfits today. It was not intentional.
It was not intentional. It's just super hot, so we came to work with our long pants, and we got outside and almost passed out, so we wouldn't put on shorts.
Cole Roland says, no spare tire, but a tire inflator. How does that work when the tire comes off the bead? Not very well.
That's the answer. You call AAA. That's
Yeah,
what
you
happens.
call AAA. Yep.
Or your friend.
Unfortunately, that's where we're at with modern day tire inflation kits.
The biggest thing that this is missing from a Colorado point of view is all-wheel drive, right? All-wheel drive has not only become essential in places like Colorado, but it's also become a luxury feature, right? With Audi kind of leading the way, and now many of the other manufacturers considering premium manufacturers considering all-wheel drive as one of those things that people think of as premium. And so to me, the front-wheel drive does rob it of a little bit of luster because it feels a little too economy sedan versus premium sedan.
That's interesting. Yeah, I could see that. Integra, though, like historically front-wheel drive, right? So they're keeping to those roots. But I know a lot of people are really upset about the Integra because they were expecting the 1990s Integra with crazy screaming VTEC and, two doors and tight cockpits and that kind of thing. This is not that. This is much more grown up, much more mature. But I think it's going to sell well. Now, the other question, too, is that should they have just called this the ILX, right? Because the ILX has been the Acura version of the Civic.
No, because I'm getting so confused with the Acura names that I'm glad they actually went back to the Integra. I think of all the different names that they've tried now, the TLX, the ILX, and I just think to myself, they're a bunch of like no name, no cachet value names for vehicles. So I'm glad that they went back to Integra. And I'm hoping that you're right. I'm hoping that they stick the Type R engine in here and call it a Type S and just, go crazy with it. In terms of its competitors, Tommy, I think for places like Colorado, you're better off with the all-wheel drive. But then again, 37,395 is a relatively good number if you can get it, right? Here's the other problem. And I know it's funny because I've been going to a lot of car launches, and the manufacturer reps will be up there and they'll be like, oh, the car starts at, in this case, let's see, what does it start at? 35,800. And then, I feel like we're playing this pantomime with them because we know that because of the situation we're in, by the time it hits the dealerships, it's not $37,000, it's $47,000. And that to me just completely skews everything. So, in my head, when the manufacturer says 37, I'm thinking 47, and I don't think this is a $47,000 car. And that's because the dealers are adding $10,000 markups on these things.
Although we're seeing the market change pretty quickly.
We're seeing the used car market change. I'm hoping that the new car market will follow. But new cars are still getting, crazy, ridiculous dealer markups. And then that skews everything because I can no longer justify spending another $10K on a car that is not 10K worth more car.
True. Yep. So we got a new comment.
Yep.
I've been driving front-wheel drive for 20 plus years in hard winter climate in Canada. No problem.
Yeah, so you got in Canada, in certain provinces, of course, you now need snow-rated tires. In Germany, if you want to be insured, you need snow-rated tires. And a front-wheel drive car with snow tires, in some ways, is better or as good as an all-wheel drive car with all seasons. Probably better. The problem here in America is most places, in Colorado we have to because we've got so much snow, most people will not, like in Chicago where I grew up, will not switch to snow tires. And then you're driving around with a front-wheel drive car with all-season tires, and all-season tires are now the worst of both worlds because they're not good in the summer and they're certainly not good in the winter. And so once again, it's like I said about the dealers, in real-world terms, people just don't use snow tires in a lot of places.
So someone's asking about the curb weight of this car. It's right around 3,100 pounds. Someone says, sorry, Acura, but Toyota GR86 is better value and has a great language design. But it's a very different car, right? Like the GR86 is a tiny, 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 tiny backseat, where this is a more usable car. If you had a family, like you could probably not realistically use an 86.
So Tommy and I just drove the GR86 last week. That is just an incredible car. Once again, same problem, $10,000 dealer markup on those cars in most places. But you're right, Tommy, the back seat is tiny. I could not fit back. I wouldn't even attempt to fit back there. So this can be more of a family-friendly car. There's also, we just got done driving the GR Corolla, which we can't quite talk about yet. That's another one that potentially sort of competes against this or will compete against it. It certainly competes against the Honda Civic Type R.
Sure. So another comment here is, where did it go? Reg says for 37K, I would go for a 2-liter turbo Accord, no 1.5. Great point, but I don't think you can get the stick in the Accord anymore, can you? Let me know in the comment below. I'm not sure you can get a manual in that car anymore. And I think that this is a nicer design than the Accord. And the fact of the matter is, too, like a lot of people in the U.S., I'm not saying I do this, but a lot of people still are looking for a premium brand, right? The brand is still an important factor. And a lot of folks, I think, would prefer to see the Acura badge on the front than the Honda badge.
You know what's crazy, Tommy? We're living at a time where I think the take rate, in other words, the percentage of cars in America that come with a manual transmission that people buy is less than 4% now, which is
Tiny.
Tiny. I mean, most people don't know how to drive a stick shift. And yet you've got cars like the GR86, like the new Supra, manual transmission, like the GR86 and the GR Corolla that are available in a stick shift. You've got this that's available in a stick shift. You've got the Type R that only comes in a stick shift. You got the Type SI, right? The SI that's only available in a stick shift. It's amazing to see this renaissance of stick shift cars all of a sudden, where we're living in an environment where people are buying them. I don't get it from a business standpoint. I love it as an enthusiast. I think we're kind of seeing this electrification has brought on this new renaissance of not just engines and efficiency and like super turbos, but also the manual in a lot of ways has come steaming back. And I'm so happy about that.
Yeah. And if you don't want a stick and you still want a Civic Si experience, Integra, right? You can get the CVT.
But only top end trim.
No. CVT is on every trim.
Is it on? Oh, so only
the manual only on top.
I see, yeah.
And then the CVT is actually not so bad. So I know people think of like 10-year-old CVTs and in big Ultima energy where it's just the CVT in the Integra has gotten much better than some of the
Here's something interesting you guys may not be aware of. I was just reading a story where they did some performance testing with a CVT that's set up the traditional way. In other words, it runs in its most efficient fuel band, and then it doesn't fake shifts like some manufacturers now do these fake shifts, right? Where it like puts in like a shift as if you were in a traditional automatic.
Sure.
And you know what they found?
It was faster.
Yeah, it was faster without the fake shift.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah.
Isn't that crazy?
Crazy. Yeah, no, 100% crazy. Yeah. But that's because they're designed to be that way, right? Designed to be a steady state, high RPM, right in the power band, right in the torque band, and let physics take over. All right. Trying to see what else people are talking about.
I love these live shows because it gives us a chance to have a direct conversation with you guys. And I know if you're watching this and you're not live, then leave your comments. We'll try to answer those comments. We'll certainly look at them. Let's talk about some things that before. Any more comments?
Yeah, Eric says premium needs ventilated front seats. Good point. Someone said, I'd be really interested in this car if it had the 8-speed dual clutch from my 2017 ILX. That's a great point as well. So this car, I think, is more or less replacing the ILX, which was the entry-level affordable Acura for a while. But to your point, it's cool that they're bringing a little bit more style into it, because I thought the ILX always looked a little bit frumpy. I think this has a lot more design going on into it. And then the name too, right? It's cool that we're starting to see a return to some names from other manufacturers too, right? Like Lincoln, you got Corsair, Aviator, Navigator, right? These are real names.
Yeah, I think people are finding out that the nomenclature of naming things with 3 digits or 3 numbers just isn't as thought-provoking or as emotionally interesting as it is actually having a real name. I think Hyundai, Kia have done a great job with actually having real names, right? They name cars after cities, which I think is cool. And then the most classic cars I can think of, like the Mustang, the Corvette, right? These are not alphanumeric combinations. These are real names or real cars. And I think it's taken like 10 years for manufacturers to get back to that. And of course, the Germans have always done really cool naming things where the numbers and then the letters meant something, and then they got away from that, right? So once upon a time, a 320i was a 3 Series 2-liter fuel injected, or a 320iX was a 3 Series 2-liter all-wheel drive, and then it got all wacky.
But did you know even back in the 80s they were screwing with it?
Really?
Yeah. Like a 325e is supposed to be a 3 Series with a 2.5 liter, but it's a 3 Series with a 2.7.
So there were exceptions, but for the most part, like a 325 was a 2.5 liter, a 330 was a 3 liter, right?
Yeah.
It was actually, and Mercedes did the same thing, right? With at that time you had a CE S class, right? And then of course we added all these other classes, and now with electrification, we're going EQ, EQS. It's gotten a little, when you have, let's say, 3 letters, a C class, an E class, an S class, right? Then it's easy. But when those numbers and letters become so vast because they have so many different model lineups, it just devalues all of that. So it becomes kind of meaningless.
Yeah, very true. What other premium brands offer cars at this price point? So we talked about like A3, 2 Series Grand Coupe, Mercedes A-Class, right? Like the small entry-level premium cars. Now the question is then, we had this discussion too the other day. Do you buy a normal car like a typical brand? Like if you're in the market for a RAV4 or a Lexus NX, are you better off buying a loaded RAV4 or a base model Lexus NX? What do you think?
So let's bring it to this car, right? Would you rather get the SI, or would you rather get the Integra, or would you rather just get a regular Civic Turbo?
This one's a little bit difficult though, because this car is more luxury oriented and the SI is more sport oriented.
Right.
But like with a RAV4, loaded RAV4, that's trying to be luxury. So is NX.
The real answer, Tommy, is get whatever car you can get your hands on today. Because especially for some reason, what happened when it all went wacky was that the Japanese, because I think what happened with the earthquake, had the supply of parts and bits to build cars, and they weren't affected by the supply chain. And then they ran out of those parts and bits, and now the Japanese, especially Honda and Toyota, are really struggling to build cars at all. Whereas it seems like the domestic manufacturers have now gotten back to the supply chain that was there previously, and so they're actually cranking out cars. So once again, this is a great question, but in the real world, the answer is whatever you can get that isn't being marked up by some crazy number.
So someone wanted to see how high does the hatch go up. We can show that.
Yeah, sure.
So I'm about 6 feet tall, and you can see it probably sticks a few inches above me. So I don't think it's going to be a concern in a lot of garages.
You know what I don't get? Come over here. Let me show you this. Look at this beautiful surround around that rear speaker. I'm not sure why you would do that, because most people are going to stick their luggage up against it, or it's going to get bashed up. I mean, it's cool. I see you're paying for the extra sound system, but back here, I'm not sure you need all that bling. The other thing that's kind of I'm missing, this is kind of cool, the Acura right there, little hidden Easter egg. I think that's pretty cool. The other thing that I'm missing in this car, which I think they would do well to add, are like pick a color, Acura, maybe red brake calipers, right? It's just got these boring brake calipers. It doesn't, to me, that doesn't scream luxury. And another fad that could well and quickly die, hopefully, is black everything. So everything is blacked out. I mean, it's almost impossible to buy a new car without black wheels nowadays. But look at this is a midnight edition car from the dealer, from the factory without being a midnight edition car.
It also depends on the trim too. So certain trims may have different design
But
aspects.
currently this is the highest level of trim you can get. In
Yeah,
this
but like
Integra.
an Integra is going to have, if you get a base model, it's going to have different trim around it. So Lion Runner says, "Where is the car made? Is it Japanese? It's made in Marysville, I think, Ohio."
Let's look. It should be on the Monroney here. The percentage of U.S. content. Yep, Marysville, Ohio, Tommy. Final assembly plan. Country of origin. Engine. U.S. Transmission. Where do you think the transmission comes from?
Mexico.
Wrong. India.
There you go. So Andrew says, "Why is there no spare tire? Is that for cost cutting? I don't get it. If you can explain it, why no spare?" So part of it probably is cost cutting, but weight savings is a really big deal, and space saving as well.
So 65% of this car's content is made either in the U.S. or Canada. So it is actually one of the more domestic cars made. Hey, here's a bit of trivia. Who can guess what the most, in terms of its content, domestically manufactured car is? You probably know the answer.
Yep, it's the Model Y, right? Tesla Model Y?
No,
I think it is.
it's not.
What is it? Tesla Model 3?
No,
We just did this video.
no, it's not.
What is it?
It's the Honda Accord.
I don't think that's true because they just changed it.
Did they?
Yeah.
It used to be the Honda Accord.
Yeah, we
Made in
just did this
Ohio.
video together.
Well, we do so many videos that I lose track. I am sorry.
You were so
Are
confident
you
with that.
Googling it?
Yeah, I think it's the
It could be the Tesla.
yeah.
But
There's
the batteries, I'm not sure if the batteries might come from the Mega factory, Panasonic's and Tesla's Mega factory out. I don't know. Anyway, it used to be the Honda Accord for sure.
Okay, does the privacy cover come off? I think it does.
And the other thing that's kind of weird is, everybody's gone to these new, bigger sunroofs. Why does this have this old school sunroof?
Yep, it does. It's got these like little clips, and then you just go boop. You can take that off. It's quite nicely done.
Where do you put it?
Well, you could take it off.
Take it off. Well, now, hold on. I'm not sure this is that nicely done. So we take it off. Okay, here comes the privacy cover. Let's do it. Then what? What happens next?
Well, take it out.
How do you take it out? So you can tell we have not rehearsed this, guys. Okay, so how do you take it out?
There's probably little clips like that. See?
Okay.
Super easy.
All right, and then you got these things sticking out here, which seem very haphazardly placed.
These
Don't
come
break
out- Do they come out too? They probably come out too. I bet they do.
I'm not sure. And then what do you do with this?
Then you can fold it up.
You can't fold it up. You got to put it down there.
I think there's a way. You can
No,
probably-
don't. You'll break it.
No, look.
Do not fold it
I'm
up.
not gonna break
It's
it.
not meant to fold,
You can
Tommy.
fold it up. I think they showed us this in the presentation. There's a way that you can collapse it. It's nice and squishy. See, it's nice and squishy. It's a good system. I think they did a good job with that.
Okay. All right. Well,
So the Tesla Model Y is the most American car you can buy.
is it okay?
Yep.
What is a Tesla Model Y's percentage of built in America?
Got to watch the video.
Okay, go to all TFL.
It's on the TFL Talk podcast.
Okay.
All right. While you're putting that back together, we got a few more questions we can answer here.
Yeah, I'm putting it back together. It certainly is a unique approach to a privacy cover. Thank you for spotting it, whoever did that. I did not notice. I kind of like the ones that roll in and out.
Someone asked, this is an interesting question. I just bought my first home. I currently have a 2013 sedan. I need more cargo space. Would you get a Forester or the Integra? Tim, I think it depends on what you're looking for.
Do you want all-wheel drive, and do you want enough cargo space? Forester's going to have like 3 times as much cargo space.
But it's also not nearly as much fun to drive.
No, but your dog can't fit back there unless it's a purse dog.
That's true. Yeah, for sure. But it's got more space than a typical sedan because you can stack stuff up a little bit higher. So
the real answer is we don't know because Subaru doesn't lend us cars, so we have not driven a Forester. Probably in 10 years, Tommy?
Sam says GR Corolla hatchback already beat it, but that's a much more sporty kind of track-focused car. This is more of a comfortable, fun-to-drive daily driver.
What do you think of the color, Tommy?
Yeah, it's very trendy.
Yeah, you like that kind of? What do you think it's called? You think it's got a trendy name?
It's got some cool name
Oh,
in
it
it.
does have a liquid name. Liquid carbon, Tommy.
Yeah.
But the interior is just red.
Big TMD says, wish it came in a 2-door. I think a lot of Acura folks will probably agree with you from the fanboy community. Hong says, what is the MSRP? About $37,000 on this one as equipped.
Yep. And then let's do the fuel economy and wrap this up. Huh?
Sounds good.
So the fuel economy, in case you're curious, is 26 city, 36 highway, 30 MPG combined. You'll spend about $1,000 in fuel over a period of 5 years. I don't know what number they use to calculate that. When gas was like $6 a gallon, I'm sure it's more. Now the gas is like $3 a gallon. It probably might be that That seem fair?
I think that's fair.
So did you like driving it? Let's talk about the driving.
It drives really well.
Yeah.
I think it's got a pretty good power band. It's not like a typical turbo where it like dumps off at 2,000 RPM.
I think it needs 50 more horsepower. I think if it were me, I'd want to see 250.
Yeah, it's not a straight line performer, but it's really good in the turns. They really did a great job kind of balancing daily comfort with fun to driveness. The seats hold you in place really well. The steering's a little bit numb, but the best part is the shifter feel is excellent. It's an easy manual transmission to drive, even to learn on. With the auto and rev matching, it's super easy to kind of look like a pro really quickly. And just the feel, that little click, clickety click of the 6-speed is fantastic.
By the way, that's another trend that's happening now. Every manual has auto rev matching. You know, we also have a channel called TFL Bike, and Honda actually pioneered some of the non-clutch transmissions on their motorcycles where you don't have to have a clutch. And the idea there, of course, is like the easier you make the motorcycle to ride, right, the more people will actually buy it. So why not do like a clutchless transmission? Why not
Like
just
a
motorcycle? Like their motorcycles have clutchless transmissions where you actually shift, but you don't need to engage a clutch, and they're not CVTs.
So,
I mean, you're halfway there with rev matching anyway.
Yeah, but motorcycles are sequential transmissions, so you can't skip gears. You have to go in order.
Yeah, I think that's just a technical issue you could get past.
Well, the other thing too is that the African Twin is just a dual clutch transmission, which a lot of cars have. So
anyway, it would be cool to have a manual without.
No.
Well,
it's been done so many times and it never works.
How about the new Dodge products? Those are going to have electric powertrains, but they're going to be shiftable.
You remember, like in the 70s, Volkswagen had the auto stick?
Yeah, but those were horrible, Tommy.
And then
don't even say auto stick. That was just like the worst of any transmission. It was like if you took the worst aspects of an automatic and the worst aspects of a manual and you combined them, you'd have the worst ever transmission. It was unreliable. It was no fun to drive, and it felt horrible.
That's every clutchless manual to exist, though. Because Saab had one too in the early 2000s called Saab Sonic, which was a manual transmission.
The best thing about it was the name.
Yeah, manual transmission with no clutch. It just doesn't work. You got to do a real manual or a real automatic.
Anyway, we are living in a renaissance of manuals. So if you guys are all about save the manuals and you have a chance to actually buy a manual because, you know, this is the waning days of both manuals and internal combustion. Let's face it, it is, Tommy.
All right, let us know what you guys think in the comments below.
And remember, go to TFL Bids if you want to check out a really classic and cool old Mercedes diesel that can run on both diesel and French fry fuel. And then, of course, our classic FJ is going up next. And, of course, we've got some cars over there. We'll be selling our convertibles that we're doing on TFL Cars. Those are coming up as well. So those are going to get sold. So we're trying to get some more vehicles up on the site.
Yep, and you can submit your own, too, if you want to try out TFL Bids.
Yeah, click the Submit Your Vehicle button.
And we'll see you in the next live show. Thanks for watching.
Yeah.